Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. Welcome back to Feminine Roadmap Podcast, the podcast that helps you navigate the challenges and the changes of midlife and empowers you to live a more vibrant second half. If you find us on YouTube today, please subscribe, ring that bell. If you're on a podcast platform, please don't forget to subscribe and share this conversation, because today we're going to be talking about taking a proactive, holistic approach to gracefully aging. And my guest is Dr. Lynn Anderson. She's a naturopath, a nutritional therapist, and a published author. And she is going to be sharing her passion and her expertise around how we can take better care of ourselves so that our aging process is healthier and more empowering than we might see in the media and in movies. Lynn, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
I'm excited to have somebody who has a message that's empowering and one that we can take and apply and have this life that is more vibrant. The thing that keeps coming up before we get started is there was a time when 50 was old.
Yes, my dear.
Right?
Yeah.
But we are now in a time where the life expectancy of an average woman is in mid-80s. So here we are facing and leading the way with a new mindset around what aging looks like and what old and young actually means. And midlife, what is that? So we get a chance to define that for people. And that's why I wanted you on the show, because you are doing things and you have a platform that really supports this idea of vibrancy after midlife. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what led you into this particular area, and of course, why are you passionate about it?
Well, first off, my life has been about health and fitness, and I've been in the health and fitness field for over 30 years. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and so I had a private practice for a while, and that is really, my passion has been that and my karma yoga. Those are my two, health and fitness. That's my passion and what I've always done. But what got me more into the midlife thing is I'm one of those women who I was married, divorced, and then at the age of 50, I got married again to my now husband. And, in your 50s, as you just said, you hit 50, hit that mark and you go, well, 50 is not bad. It's not what everybody's been telling me.
Right.
I've got a lot of energy. I'm looking good. I just got married. You're feeling really great. But I also have always subscribed to the fact that whatever you do in each decade in your life is going to determine the next decade.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to pay attention, say, what I do in my 50s is going to determine who I am in my 60s. And so you pay attention to that. And that's what I had always been teaching. I'm going around a long way around to get to the point that I was not going through menopause. I was having all of these terrible problems, and I had endometriosis and all kinds of things. So long story short, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so at the age of, I think it was 55, I still hadn't gone through, I went in and I had what's called a radical hysterectomy. And that means they just took everything. And like that, I was in menopause, it was total shock,
Yes.
And having to deal with the cancer and all of that stuff and, everything. And I tell people that I was laying in my bed and I couldn't get out of bed. And it was the first time in my life I could never get out of bed. I mean, to put my feet on the ground and get up was agonizing pain. So I started to create in my mind what I wanted to do, because I was determined I was going to get up and keep going and I was going to live. And I wanted to dance and I wanted to do yoga. That's what I wanted to do. So I created in my mind Dr. Lynn's anti-aging yoga dance class. I created it. I wrote it out on paper. I put the whole thing together. And then once I got back on my feet, I went and I started teaching it to my class and they loved it. So I hired a director. I got a studio. We did a professional video series of Dr. Lynn's anti-aging yoga dance. And it went internationally. It was distributed all over the country and all over the world. So it came out of a very dark time in my life, but it took me to a really positive place in my life. And from that point on, I've been a real advocate of, especially for women, because I know you and I had a little conversation before, and you're out there in California, and I was right in the midst of it, right in the whole California place. And it's so hard on women today because what they see in the media, the Photoshop, and what they see in the media is really so hard for women. They really bash themselves up as to what is really beautiful in your 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, you know. And what I tell all my friends is, you know, once women get in their 50s, that's when they start to get pretty. Right?
It's that confidence piece, I'm telling you.
It's what it is. I mean, you go into I go in to teach a class and I've got, let's say, 50, 60, and 70, and even 80-year-old women, and the smiles and the beauty that comes out of them. And, you know, it's just, it's wonderful. It really is.
So tell me a little bit about what it is that makes what you do anti-aging. What is the special sauce that really helps that be something that helps us as women in midlife, not only empower ourselves to feel beautiful, but to grasp our age with such vigor, you know, that joy.
Well, it's two layered. The first thing is attitude. Attitude is everything. It's how you look at things, how you get up in the morning, and where you see your life going. You know, it's very easy to say, and sometimes I'll be around people that are younger than me and they'll go, "Oh, I'm so old. I'm feeling," and it's like, no, I'm so young and vibrant. You know, that's the way to have it. But it's that, but it also then comes back to my naturopathic background and my yoga therapy background. There are three pillars of health, and they are diet, they're exercise, and sleep. And those three things are essential if you are to stay vital and radiant. So the whole key is what you put in your body, what you do with your body, how you let your body rest, and what you put in your mind. That's the key to staying young and vital throughout your life.
It's so true, isn't it? We think about the food in the body because they're like the visible concrete things, but that mind piece is so important as we get older, isn't it?
Right. It's very important. I mean, it's all about, you know, your energy comes from your mind. Your mind is what directs you. You know, you need to feed the body to keep the body healthy. But, you know, I've known many people who, and I don't know how great their diet is, but they're eating a healthy diet and they have a very toxic mind. They have a very negative mind. So they're counteracting everything. As a naturopath, we believe that your body, your mind, and your soul must be in perfect balance to have perfect health. If one is out of balance and the other two, you don't have perfect health and it'll get tilted. So when I work with clients, it's bringing all three of those parts, which is what you are, your tripart being, together and bringing it into a balanced and healthy place.
You know, it's so interesting how we live in a world right now where we're bombarded with information and a draw on our attention. I mean, just 20 years ago, we weren't carrying around cell phones, a computer in our hands. We were not in constant contact with information to the degree that we are now. And you talked about, you know, we think about our food, what's good and bad. And we can talk about that too, looking at food in a more neutral perspective and really thinking about our bodies as our partners, right? But that mindset piece is so powerful because we don't realize how detrimental to our health in the future, especially as we age, that protecting our mind is so important. And part of the anti-aging process is what we choose to do with what we have going on in between our ears and what we take in.
And then you go all the way back to the three pillars of health. You know, if you're eating and supporting your body and your mind with the right kind of nutrients to give you vitality, and you are exercising, which the body and the mind require exercise. We are designed to move. We're not designed to sit. We're designed to move. That's how humans evolved. But sleep is also a very big component too. So when you take those three things and you bring those together and use those as the pillar, it's the foundation to build upon, and you address all of those things, you will age gracefully. Take one of those out, and and the older you get, because what happens is we are an engine too, right? You're just like a car, as you get older, things happen. It's like, I'll give you an example. I have an elderly father. My father is 88 years old, and he called me the other day. He's having his speech is not real great. And we kind of laughed a little bit. He said, well, you know what they tell me? My vocal cords are getting old. So it's like, yeah, Dad, everything gets old, but how can you gracefully and help yourself do that without detriment?
Let's talk about some of those things, mindsets around food and body. Let's start there, because I think that is a woman's challenge.
Yes, because I would say that as women, and I don't care how good you look or what you do, we all, as women, unfortunately, we have a bashing thing. We always get up and we look in the mirror and we see the wrinkles. We see all the things. It's like my students used to come to me sometimes and they would say, oh, I've got wrinkles and my hair's getting gray. And I would look at them and I would say, I see a beautiful smile. I see beautiful eyes. I don't see a big butt there. I see a beautiful person. But they were focused on, how can I get rid of this big butt? Or I've got this belly. We get focused on the wrong things. Those aren't the important things. The important thing is your attitude. It's your essence. It's what you give off. I mean, you take a woman who, let's say, is a little overweight and she walks through the room and she carries herself and she's got that confidence and she feels good. She's beautiful. You take somebody who's got what we'll call the classically beautiful body and all that, and they've got a sour attitude, they're not pretty.
Yeah, it's that definition that we may be historically attached to, which is the numbers, right? The size of your breast, the size of your waist, the size of your pants, right?
Yep. And people get caught up in those things. But, you made a really good point, is that we are so bombarded with social media. And if you extract out of social media, probably 99% of it isn't really valid. It really isn't, because if you go onto social media, everybody has a great life. I mean, I have problems. People will say to me, oh, Dr. Lynn, you're so together and calm and I am basically, I'm a happy person, but I always remind my students, I have a husband, I have children, I have grandchildren, I have an elderly father, I have bills to pay. I have a life too. And I go through stress and we all do, but it's so easy to just see the surface and not understand that we are all human beings and we all share the same feelings and we all share the same emotions. Everybody laughs. Everybody cries. That's the truth,
Let's talk a little bit about how moving our bodies, how you help women move their bodies. It brings that vibrancy.
Well, the yoga dance class it's designed so that it's in little increments, and we do things that have to do with stretch, things that have to do with balance, things that have to do with strength and aerobic conditioning, because those are the components that you need to do for a really good fitness program. And it's all designed non-impact, so that we take it into that low and non-impact thing, and so that anybody can do it. I do modifications so that if we're doing a plank, for example, I'll have them drop their knees, and those can modify. And I always remind everybody that life's full of modifications. It starts the minute you're born. So modify where you have to. Don't hurt yourselves. But the idea is to get them moving. We have the music, have some fun, get everybody laughing, and everybody feels better afterwards. And I always end my class by saying to them to congratulate themselves for doing the most important thing they did today, took an hour out to take care of their health. Most important thing in your life. And what is the thing that we don't pay the most attention to? Our health, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we've come through a season in history where being home and not moving has become the norm.
Yes, yes. And you hear about the, what is it, the COVID-15, the weight that people have put on, but you need to get out. Like I said, the body is designed to move. It wants to move. It's not designed to be stationary. And so it's simple things like going for a walk in the sunshine and getting some vitamin D, improving your mood, getting out and going to a dance class or bicycling, whatever it is, get out and do something active.
Mm. And you talked about we are mind, body, spirit. When we move our bodies, it does empowering things for our mind. Am I right?
Absolutely. Well, the endorphins, that would be a perfect example of, it certainly lifts your moods. We know that physical exercise produces neurochemicals that go throughout your body and your brain. And so they improve the mood and all of that kind of stuff, so it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
And when the body and the mind are in this really nice place, then the soul can be heard. But the soul gets karma yoga, which I'm a karma master, and I've been teaching karma for almost 30 years. And karma teaches us that the soul sits back. The soul is here to observe life. It's here to work out its karma, but it's not going to usurp the body and the mind. The body and the mind have to come back and they have to connect with the soul in order to go along the soul's mission.
I think it's important that we have a solid understanding of who we are, and a solid understanding of what's important to us.
Right. I mean, we are here according to karma, we chose to come as a human being to experience all that it is to be a human being. That's, like I said earlier, you've got to experience sadness if you want to experience happiness. We are here to experience all those things. The question is, what do you do with them? How do you feed the body and the mind with those things? If you're really sad, do you get up and go to the gym and eat healthy and, try to sleep and say, I'm going to do the best I can to take care of myself to get through this? Or do you sink to that place where you eat junk food, you sit on the couch? It's all about what you do.
And it's not how you feel about doing it. It's having that greater idea about what I do and how I live. And like you said, that next decade,
right?
You're building a foundation. You're building something. Are you building on a solid foundation, or are you building on a shaky foundation with the decisions that we make and the way that we think and what we consume, both mentally and with our food? And we talk a lot about restriction when it comes to food, don't we? We talk about, this is bad, this is good. But I love the idea of seeing food as it's not moral, it's neutral. It's really every person's body's relationship, right? And as we change, what is feeling right to us in what we consume.
Well, one of my books, and it's called the Naturopathic Series, is the Yoga of Nutrition. And believe it or not, yoga has a branch. It's called Annamaya. And I studied it and I wrote a book about it. And what Annamaya is, you are what and how you eat. You are a product of that. We know, science, this isn't hocus pocus. We know that there's certain foods that go in and they supply the vitamins and minerals, the energy and the building that your body needs. If you don't put those things in, the body doesn't care. It's like, go ahead and eat all the junk you want, but I'm not going to work because you're not supporting me. Yeah. It's like taking a car and pouring water into the gas tank. It's not going to work. So it's really coming back and thinking about how effectively and efficiently do you want your body to work? How can you come back and really love who you are? And, that comes back to karma, which teaches us that you and me and everyone, we chose this body. So you should love this. You chose it. It's a wonderful vehicle to take you through life.
Yeah. And even if someone hears that and says, well, I don't believe that, the reality is this body that you live in is the body that you live in. And this
Ex-
life.
exactly. You're who you are. And there's two things you cannot change. Two things you cannot change your identity. You cannot change your family of origin, and you cannot change your identity. You can change your sex, you can change your name, you can change your looks, you can change everything else, but you can't change the egg and the sperm. You cannot change that right there. And that's what made you who you are. And you're absolutely right. You've got this wonderful thing, which is this vehicle, we'll call it your
Yeah.
body. And you've got this GPS, which is your mind. You've got this wonderful thing to navigate through life. And yet, how often do we bash and beat it up?
Mm, mm. Now let's talk about restorative actions that we can take, because I think some people come sliding sideways into midlife after a rough first half. You know, they're just tucking and rolling into midlife, and it's like, let's talk about that restorative piece, because someone may feel like, life up until this point has been hard. Maybe they've gone through so much that they're already worn out in their heart and in their mind, maybe their body a little bit. So let's talk about what it looks like to support that kind of a body, to begin to shift it toward more health, more strength.
Well, it usually begins with having someone to help you along. And that's really what a naturopath would do, or a therapist, or a coach, or someone. It's connecting with someone and realizing that person, who hopefully is knowledgeable, and you've got the right person, can help guide you through the steps. And sometimes it's baby steps, but that's okay. I mean, you got to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. And I mean, my hat goes off to the people that are in their 50s and 60s who really, let's say they have a major heart attack, horrible thing. And that's it. That's the key. They make a turn, and now they're exercising and they're eating healthy. And, they did that out of something that, out of a bad place that they were at, they were able to turn that around. That's what it takes. It takes that feeling that there's so much more life beyond 50. In fact, it's pretty great past 50, I can tell you. I mean, I'm going to be 70 this year, and it's like, oh, it's why, wow, I have this knowledge, I have this wisdom, and I'm sure you can relate to this. You shift back and you have a different way of looking at the world. An example would be, I mean, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you're comparing yourself to other women, right?
Yeah.
I see these young women and I go, oh my God, they're so beautiful. And I like to look at them because they're so pretty, and their skin is beautiful. And, you have that kind of ability to just nurture and really, really, bring women along as you go through your decades.
That is one of the things about maturing that I love. I love reaching forward to women that are older than me and vibrant, because that bringing women along, that community, that connection, it's so many of the not everyone over 50 chooses to behave wisely with maturity and kindness, but the ones that do, because we're people are people.
Right.
There's nicer and not nice people at every age and stage. But when we proceed along this journey of life in a healthy way, and we have a wealthy mind, it's rich with information, and our heart is wealthy, it's rich with love, right? Our body is well taken care of. There's a wealth of strength or vitality. Those people shine when you see them.
Yes, and it's important to be able to be a mentor and, a role model to people, to be able to also share with people, I mean, I've been through a lot of tough times in my life. Life hasn't been a picnic. It isn't meant to be that way. But when you can see someone else who's, like I had one student, and she was very much, her boyfriend broke up with her and she was in love with him and her heart was broken, I've had my heart broken. And so we talked about that, and it was so good for her, because here's a mature woman who could really tell her, one day you're going to look back and be really happy that he left you.
Right? Perspective.
Yeah. And she's like, Wow, okay. But you have so much more to give people. And that's really, I mean, when it comes down to what are we all here for? To share and give. That's what
Hmm.
it's about. I
Hmm.
mean, the material things don't really mean anything. You're not taking, according to karma, you don't take any of that with you.
While we exist in the world that we do, that's very narcissistic. you,
Yes.
it's a very interesting world. I think 100 years ago, we didn't have those decisions to make,
Hmm.
right? About, we didn't have, I don't know how else to put it other than life was simpler in that most people lived within the community that they lived in and they served in that community that they lived in. And their life was kind of encompassed in that spot.
Hmm.
Now we have this opportunity to live virtually
Hmm.
through our experiences. And I think one of the things that we need, and that I'm hearing you talk about in an underlying sort of way, is that knowing of who we are and really
Yes.
being grounded in what we're here for, how
Hmm.
we can serve, what beauty and strength we have. And I think aging gracefully really comes from that place of knowing. And
Hmm.
all of that noise, all of that pressure, all of that perception, we're able to shield ourselves from being pushed off center by
Hmm.
all of that noise. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see the aging gracefully.
Well, I mean, the whole key is to come back to balance. You want to be
Yes.
balanced in your body, your mind, and your soul. That creates
Hmm.
perfect health. It's always back to your center. It's like when
Hmm.
I teach my yoga class, no matter what pose we go into, we always come back and connect at our center. I always bring my students back to their center because that's where your strength is. That's where you come from. And we get so out here,
Hmm.
and that's where we tilt, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and we have to shut the noise out and come back and do connect at our center. Because again, I mean, it's as wonderful as the internet and social media, you and I would never have met if not for
Right.
this. I mean, it's a wonderful tool. It also has, like everything in life, you want to be happy, you need to know sadness. I mean, everything has its counterpart.
Yeah.
And I think that too often, especially for women, we get caught up in that media hype, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think we have this incredible opportunity. The flip side is how can we use the culture, the environment that we live in as women over 50,
Hmm.
moving through this second half of life, this second act, third act, however people want to put it. How are we taking the power back and possibly being like you? I use my podcast, you use your platform to inform and inspire women to consider how they want to show up in the world. Once we are our best selves, right?
Hmm.
We can use social media or we can use these tools to help other women. That's what I see you doing. You're helping other women connect to that center instead of being out here because we need someone to sometimes go focus,
Yeah.
bring it back.
Bring it back in and let's get real about what's really important. And as
Yeah.
you will hear me say anytime that I talk to anybody, most important thing in your life is your health. Take
Yeah.
care of it, body, mind, and soul. Let the rest of it just filter away. Come back to that and focus on that. You will age gracefully. You will move through life gracefully if you have your health. The minute you lose your health, nothing is important. Because I can tell you, when you are in bed, when you have been diagnosed with cancer, when you don't know what the outcome is, money doesn't mean anything, reason, art, everything disappears. The
Mm.
only, so your most important thing, because if you want to be, let's say you want to be a rocket scientist or whatever, you need your health to get there. You got to be a healthy person. You got to get out of bed. You've got to be healthy every day to go and be
Hmm.
productive in the world. And nature says that we produce, we are productive. That's why we're here. to produce. And you can't do that if you're not healthy.
Mm. What would you say to someone, again, back to the skidding into midlife or later in life? What are some steps someone can take to reconnect to health? Let's say they're just out of whack.
Mm-hmm. Well, usually it comes as a result of a crisis. I will tell you that. And, you know, my years of practice, I would have people come to me, and when they came, they were in a crisis, you know. And of course, most people came, and the big thing that they wanted was to lose weight or manage their weight, because weight's always a big issue with women. But that's not really where I would start. I would start working with them. The first thing I would do is do an assessment, because you have to look at not just where the person is at. Let's say they're slightly overweight and they haven't been working out, and you can't just look at that. You have to look at what environment do they live in, what's going on around them, what's going on with their family, what are all of the dynamics that make up a human being. Because if we just look at one thing, like if you go to a physician, they're going to look at the physical self. You go to a psychologist, they're going to look at the mental self, right? You go to a religious leader, they're going to look at the soulful, spiritual self. You have to look at all the components that interact and affect all of us on all levels. So it's a matter of doing a life assessment and then easy steps to move forward, because it all comes back to, you know, do you love yourself? Can you find that within yourself? And can you develop the right attitude? Because without a healing attitude, nothing's going to happen. Because I can't heal anybody. All I can do is teach.
Right. As you're talking about that healing attitude, I feel like part of aging gracefully on that soulful level from a heart is letting go of things that we have harbored, that forgiving ourselves and forgiving others.
Yeah, because we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, you know, I remember when I was about 30 years old and I went to my father and I'd made a couple of mistakes and I was crying. I said, "Oh, Dad, you know, I've made so many mistakes in my life." And he looked at me and he said, "Do you think you have a design on making mistakes?" And I never forgot that. And it was like an aha moment. Okay, I've made mistakes. I can correct them. Everybody does. Everybody makes mistakes. And it's okay, because that's what we learn from. It's mistakes. It's part of life. You can't be a human being without making mistakes.
Yeah.
It's part of it.
And that mindset, I think, can help a lot of people. I think regret is one of the heaviest burdens that we bear. And if we're going to shed some weight, I would say let's shed some of that weight.
Right. Yes. Well, that is something that we do carry around. You know, in karma, going back to karma, there's something called the troublesome four. And these guys come marching in, they march into all our lives. And they're envy, jealousy, resentment, and revenge. And those things, if you think about those four things, if they get inside your head, they're really going to mess you up. And those things are present everywhere. And it's up to us to see them when they come marching in and then deal with them. Because who wants to be a resentful, angry person? Right?
Right.
I mean, when I see people that are resentful and angry, I have such compassion. I feel so bad for them, because that must be an awful place to live.
Right.
Right? You know, I don't want to carry that stuff around. I'd much rather be happy. You know?
And those things actually do have neurologically, they're damaging to the actual physical brain and that soul. You know, I believe we're all created for a purpose and we're designed. And so when we are off center with those four things, we are unhealthy in a way that you can't see it, but it's literally damaging your brain. It's literally damaging your soul, because that's not how we're designed to be. No,
and all of those things are stressful.
Yes.
And stress leads to burnout. And we all know what happens. I mean, that's one of, you know, physical 101. I mean, we know what stress does to the body. It affects the immune system. It affects the way you think. It affects your heart. So when you put those extra pressures on yourself, then most people don't eat healthy when they're stressed out. That's when they'll go to the comfort foods, or they'll give up their workouts. So it starts to compound itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of understanding that you have the power to remove all those things. It's very easy to remove them. You just have to be aware of it and take the necessary action, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as we untangle those things,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the true health can come back in, right?
Exactly, exactly. As you begin to look at the emotions and the things that come in and understand how they work. And again, if you're coming from a base of you're eating healthy, you're exercising and you're sleeping, and stress comes in because it will. I have
Mm-hmm.
stressful days, but my immune system is strong
Yeah.
because I continue, because I look at, as a naturopath, we look at prevention over cure.
Yes.
And I've always said to my students and my clients, practice prevention. If you eat healthy, if you do those three things, yeah, you might get sick, you might get COVID, you might get the flu, you might, get under stress, but you're going to be better off than the person who didn't do that stuff because you've
Right.
got a stronger immune system, your heart's stronger, your lungs are stronger, your muscles are your body is stronger, you know.
Mm-hmm. And when we think about strength in midlife and beyond, do you feel from your experience that we can, there's ways to look at that differently? Like maybe we're not going to the gym and lifting heavy weights. We could be. There's a gal
Mhm.
out there, her name's Joan, Train with Joan on Instagram. Her daughter is a fitness model and they train together and they have an app. And so let's talk a little bit about that physical side and finding that fit for your
Mhm.
fitness.
Well, I mean, as we age, things change. And, it's I teach at the Sarasota Memorial Hospital. I teach classes there and do lectures there. And I was teaching my class today, and we always have a theme. And our theme today was arthritis. And it's like, well, hello, folks. You hit 50, the body starts to wear down, and arthritis is it's a real issue when you get into your 50s, 60s, and 70s. But it's what you do with your body. And maybe you can't get up and down the way you used to, but there are ways to get down to the mat and up from the mat and do it in a graceful way and a way that really supports your body and where you're going,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so it's okay to not be lifting all those huge weights that you used to, and doing all that high impact aerobics. In fact, it's
Mm-hmm.
not good for your body as you get older. What's
Mm-hmm.
good for your body is movement, stretch, balance. That's what's really good for your body.
Mm-hmm. I've heard a lot about walking
Mm-hmm.
is way more effective
Mm-hmm.
for us, especially when we're going through menopause, because menopause is impacting so many parts of our bodies, like
Yes.
joint pain and things that, like, if you're in my season of life and your body's going through change, there's that being aware of the stress and how I move my body and being and listening to my body for different things than maybe once I'm through this and where you're at, what you're
Mm-hmm.
listening to. So I love that piece about you mentioned it, like knowing your own body,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
honoring that journey wherever you're at.
And it changes with every decade. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the energy and the stamina that I had 30 years ago when I would teach 12 classes a week and I had a private practice going. I was doing cycle classes and I'm a very, very active person. Now I teach one cycle class a week, a couple of yoga classes a week. I do my workout every day by myself, but I know my body and I know where I'm at. I know I'm going to stay with that, but I also know that my body has changed and that I have to be comfortable with it and move with it in a
Mm,
graceful way rather than fighting it. I could be angry all the time that my knee hurts or this, isn't working, or, I could be really upset and bemoan about that. But what if I do that, I become an old lady. That's what people would say, right? If I
right.
sat around here and I said, "Oh, I feel so awful of my arthritis," you'd say, "God, Lynn's an old lady," you know. But if I'm vibrant, then you kind of question, well, how old is she? Or where is she coming from?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really comes down to a lot of a mindset. And I'll share something with you. I taught a chair yoga class for a few weeks, helping someone out at the hospital. And I had elderly people in there in the chair, and we were doing yoga in the chair. And they were the most fun people. And you can't believe how agile they were. I mean, I was shocked. but they were all having fun. We laughed, we had fun, some had limitations, but that's okay. We made modifications. But they came together, they were socializing, they were doing something constructive to keep themselves moving. It's the key.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the joy and the enjoyment. I think part of aging gracefully really does come from tapping into joy, don't you think?
Oh yeah, yeah. Joy is what it's all about, joy and happiness. And when, you can spend time with people and you laugh, that's, you get such pleasure out of that, that's really the important part of life. Like I said, you can't take all the material things don't mean anything. There's a Chinese proverb that says that although you may amass 1,000,000 gold coins, you can't even take with you one copper penny. And I think that's a very, very good proverb because that is true. You can have all this stuff. You're not taking it with you.
So what really matters is the next question, right?
Yeah. What really matters is your punya, your good merits. What really matters is your memories. It matters what love you gave, how much you enjoyed your life, what you did with your life, the experiences. Experience is the key.
It's life, just in
Yeah.
the word itself, right?
Yeah, live.
Live your life.
Exactly.
Love
Yep.
those whom you have been given to love.
Yep.
And back to what I was touching on earlier is I find the vibrancy of women ahead of me. I'm so inspired by that. And that's one of the things I look for in guests in my podcast. I'm often looking for someone beyond 50. My audience is probably between you and I. But, we need that encouragement that you can age well. Maybe we define it a little differently because of things that have happened to our body. Let's talk a little bit about defining aging well. When you say helping people age gracefully and having that kind of anti-aging lifestyle, what do you mean by that?
I mean that they're living a quality of life. And quality of life means that you are able to do the everyday things that you want to do. You are able to, simple things. You're able to make the bed. You're able to drive your car. You're able to go get your groceries, play with your grandchildren, go travel. You are able to live a quality of life. That's the most important thing is the quality in your life. And with that is the joy and the excitement about life. We've got something to learn every single day. I never stop learning. Every day I get up and I learn something. And, like I said, I'm almost 70 years old. I've been around this business for a long, long time. And every day I learn something new because that's the process. And so to me, as you're aging, if you want to age gracefully, keep your body moving. Feed it what it should be fed. Work with someone. If you don't know, then work with someone who can teach you how to eat a healthy diet, support it, have a good mental attitude, get a good night's sleep. And I guarantee you it's going to be a graceful move through life.
Well, I was going to ask you for your takeaways, but I think you just gave them all to me.
Yeah. It really comes back down to the foundation, and it all comes back to balance. If you are balanced in your body, your mind, and your soul, everything around you is balanced. But it's hard to keep that balance because balance is like perfect stillness, and there's going to be a storm. It's going to blow you over, and you got to come back. But how far do you get blown away, or do you come back? Because we have to bend and move, be flexible. And I think that's the problem is sometimes people tilt over and they don't know how to come back. But I did want to say one thing, because, when you go through menopause, of course, there's a drop in estrogen. Yeah. And when your estrogen drops, it does cause changes in your body because everything in your body is chemically designed for certain things. We are a biochemical machine, and that is your production machine. And of course, when you're in your producing stages, you need strong bones, you need all of those things. Well, nature says, well, you don't really need those anymore. You're not producing anymore. So we're going to pull some of that back. And that's why it's really important that people eat a really healthy diet and exercise, because we know that those certain things can support at least that level of estrogen. So that's a good example of how we need to, really pay attention to that to age gracefully.
So it's that shifting to where your body is at in this season of life. It's the picture that literally came into my mind is we need to be more like palm trees,
Yep.
when the wind comes, as opposed to a giant tree that gets blown over and it can't be replanted. We need to have that flexibility with the storms of life and that acceptance. That's what I'm hearing you say. There's some acceptance to those changes. And instead of resisting them, which causes stress, right? Maybe being curious about what it looks like for us now.
Well, you age the minute you're born. The minute you're born, you start the aging process, and it's inevitable. And if you are lucky enough, you're going to see 60 and 70 and 80 and 90. If you're lucky, that's luck. That's not something to be dreaded. That's, something wonderful to be able to experience all of that in life. So it's inevitable you're going to age. The question is, how are you going to age? What are you going to pay attention to?
That's a great question. And so it's like, if you're going to age, and you are, then what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, because it's going to happen. I have never met anybody who stopped aging. There's no such thing as anti-age or stopping aging. It's going to happen. That's why take a proactive approach. Where is your body going? What are you doing? Take a proactive approach and appreciate each of the different levels that you go through, because each one has something beautiful within it. You just have to kind of pull it back and look at it. It's like, you lose the youthfulness of your skin and, all of that stuff that you have in your 20s and 30s, but we mature in the way of wisdom. And for many women, they get more comfortable with their bodies, right? More comfortable with yourself and your own skin. What a beautiful thing that is.
It's a becoming, isn't it? Aging is a becoming. If we could really see it, instead of anti-aging, maybe we need to think of it as pro-aging.
Proactive aging. That's
proactive
the key.
Aging. Yes,
yep.
Absolutely.
Yes, because it's going to happen.
If you're lucky, right?
Yeah, if you're lucky, yes.
So how can people find you, Lynn?
Well, they can go to my website, which is drlynn.com. So it's spelled out doctorlynn.com. And they can go there. The books are there and the classes are there. In January, I'm going to launch a 6-part series, which will be going up. And that's all about everything you and I've really talked about today. It's going through all of the diet and health and what things you can do and really getting more detail about what it's all about.
As we're aging.
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Well, Lynn, I want to thank you so much for saying yes to me and for spending this time to share your wisdom and your experience and your passion with my tribe, and for being one of those women who has chosen to be vibrant, to be inspirational, to lead the way into those years that a lot of women 50 years ago never even aspired to get to. And I'm so grateful for you and how you show up in the world. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Friends, today, if you find us on YouTube, you can look down below and all the links to Lynn and her channels will be there for you. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. If you are on the audio podcast, if you head over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 297, I will have all of the links there for you as well. And today we've been speaking with Dr. Lynn Anderson. She's a naturopath. She's a nutritional therapist. She's a published author. She's a passionate, proactive ager. She is sharing with women how to love themselves on all levels and to lean into this process of changing. As we change in our bodies, in our minds, we are becoming. So if you are in the process of figuring out what does it look like to live in the second half of life and how can I do it in a more vibrant way. Listen to this podcast, share it with your friends, practice these fundamental things and see how you can show up in the world as a healthier, happier, more vibrant woman, because you are here for a purpose. There's a reason that you're here. Let's go hard after that light that you shine and get all of our light shining together. Just imagine if all of us women after the age of 50, 60, and 70 were the vibrant, beautiful expression of ourselves. How amazing would this world be? So thank you for being with us today. I look forward to sharing more inspirational people and conversations with you in the weeks to come. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.